Imagine you're sitting in a coffee shop and you notice someone struggling with their bags. Without hesitation, you jump up to help them. Later that same day, a coworker asks you to cover their shift again, and even though you had plans, you say yes. That evening, you find yourself canceling your own plans, feeling drained, wondering why the very people you help seem to take you for granted. That feeling in your gut right now, that's recognition. That's truth knocking at your door. You see, kindness is like water, essential for life, beautiful in its purity, yet capable of being taken for granted by those who have never known thirst. Today, we're going to explore why your beautiful heart, your generous spirit, the very qualities that make you uniquely, you might be inadvertently teaching others to undervalue you. Let me share something profound that happened in 1987. I was counseling a young woman, let's call her Sarah, who came to me with tears streaming down her face. I give and give and give, she said, but the more I give, the less people seem to respect me. Her words struck a chord that has resonated through the years, touching countless souls who share this same painful paradox. Your kindness isn't the problem. The problem lies in how we've been conditioned to express it and how others have been conditioned to receive it. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time you said yes, when every fiber of your being was screaming no? You see, in nature, even the most giving entities have boundaries. The ocean has shores. Trees have bark. Your heart has walls. These aren't barriers to love. They're guardians of respect. When we ignore these natural boundaries in our pursuit of being kind, we create an imbalance in the universal law of give and take. Let me share a story that might hit close to home. Back in 1992, I met a successful businessman who seemed to have it all: wealth, status, influence. But he had a peculiar habit. Every morning, he would spend an hour feeding pigeons in the park. One day, I asked him why. His answer changed my perspective forever. When I first started, he said, I would throw bread everywhere, and the pigeons would swarm me, even peck at my feet. But then I noticed something. The more desperately I threw the bread, the more aggressive they became. So I started standing still, holding the bread at chest level. You know what happened? The pigeons learned to approach respectfully. Some even perched gently on my arm. This isn't just about feeding pigeons. It's about understanding a fundamental truth about human nature. When we scatter our kindness desperately, people will scramble for it desperately. When we offer it with dignity, they receive it with dignity. Think about the people in your life right now who seem to drain your energy, who always need something, who never seem satisfied no matter how much you give. Are they bad people? No. They're responding to the pattern you've helped establish, just like those pigeons. They've learned to approach your kindness in the way you've taught them to. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Your kindness isn't making people disrespect you. Your lack of boundaries is. Your kindness isn't the problem. Your fear of being seen as unkind is. Your kindness isn't weakening you. Your belief that kindness means never saying no is. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you're not just betraying yourself. You're teaching others that your words don't align with your truth. Every time you give beyond your means, you're not just depleting yourself. You're teaching others that your resources are unlimited. Every time you accept disrespect in the name of being understanding, you're not just hurting yourself, you're teaching others that your dignity is negotiable. But here's the beautiful truth. You can be kind and respected, you can be generous and honored, you can be loving and valued. The key lies in understanding that true kindness flows from a full cup, not an empty one. Let me share something that happened in a small town in Maine. Back in 2001, a local shop owner was known for her incredible generosity. She would give credit to anyone who needed it, help anyone who asked, stay open late for last-minute customers. Eventually, her business started struggling. People would take advantage of her credit system, show up minutes before closing expecting full service, make demands that stretched her thin. Our kindness is not our weakness, it's our choice. Please respect our boundaries so we can continue to serve you with joy. Something miraculous happened. The very people who had been taking advantage of her began to show more respect. Why? Because she had clarified that her kindness was a choice, not a weakness. This brings us to our first vital understanding. Your kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's self-abandonment. When you give from an empty cup, you're not being kind to yourself or others. You're perpetuating a cycle of depletion that serves. Take a moment right now. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. Think about the last time you said yes when you wanted to say no. Feel that sensation in your body, that tightness in your chest, that knot in your stomach. That's not the feeling of kindness. That's the feeling of betraying your own truth. Now think about a time when you gave from a place of genuine abundance, when your yes was pure and true, when your kindness flowed naturally without strain or resentment. Feel the difference. That's the signature of authentic kindness. It feels light, it feels right, it feels true. Your kindness is a gift, but like any gift, its value is partly determined by how it's given. When you give it away indiscriminately, when you use it to please others at the expense of yourself, when you offer it from a place of fear rather than love, you inadvertently teach others to devalue it. As we continue this journey together, we're going to explore how to transform your kindness from a weakness that others exploit into a strength that others respect. We're going to discover how to set boundaries that don't diminish your generosity but enhance it. We're going to learn how to be kind in a way that fills both your cup and others. Remember, the goal isn't to become less kind. The goal is to become more authentically kind, to give from a place of strength, not fear, to offer your gifts in a way that uplifts both the giver and the receiver, to create relationships based on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. You know what fascinates me? The way leaves know exactly when to let go. They don't cling desperately to the branch when autumn comes. They don't apologize for following their natural cycle. They simply release when it's time. Nature, in its infinite wisdom, teaches us that letting go is not an act of unkindness. It's an act of wisdom. Let me share something powerful that happened in a small classroom in Milwaukee back in 2008. A teacher noticed that her most generous students were often the ones getting bullied. These were beautiful souls who would share their lunch, help others with homework, always volunteer to clean up. Yet somehow their kindness had become their vulnerability. One day she did something remarkable. She brought in a tube of toothpaste and asked a student to squeeze it all out onto a plate. Then she asked another student to put it back in the tube. Of course they couldn't. Your energy, your time, your kindness, she said, are like this toothpaste. Once you give them out, you can't take them back. So be intentional about how you share them. Kindness without discernment isn't generosity. It's a form of self-abandonment. When you give indiscriminately, you're not just depleting your resources. You're teaching others that your resources have no value. Think about this for a moment. When you were a child, what was your most precious possession? Maybe it was a special toy, a favorite book, or a cherished blanket. Did you let everyone play with it? Did you leave it lying around where anyone could grab it? No, you protected it because you understood its value. Your kindness is infinitely more precious than any childhood treasure. It's somehow we've learned to treat it as if it were unlimited, as if giving it away carelessly were a virtue. We've forgotten that even the sun, which gives life to our entire planet, has limits. It doesn't shine at night. It doesn't apologize for setting. It knows that periods of rest are essential for continued giving. Let me tell you about James, a talented artist I met in 2011. He would give away his paintings to anyone who expressed interest. I just want to share my gift, he'd say. But something interesting happened. The people who received his paintings for free often didn't frame them, sometimes didn't even hang them. Meanwhile, the few who had purchased his work displayed it prominently, protected it, cherished it. The difference wasn't in the paintings. It was in the value assigned to them. When James gave his work away without requiring any investment from the receiver, he unintentionally taught them that his art wasn't worth protecting, displaying, or cherishing. Your kindness is your art. It's your masterpiece. Every act of generosity, every moment of compassion, every instance of giving is a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. But here's the crucial question. Are you treating it like a priceless masterpiece or like a casual doodle? Now, I can see some of you shifting uncomfortably in your seats. You're thinking, but isn't it selfish to withhold kindness? Isn't it wrong to expect something in return? Let's explore that fear together. because it's at the heart of why so many beautiful souls find themselves depleted and disrespected. When a flower blooms, it doesn't apologize for needing sunlight. When a river flows, it doesn't feel guilty for having banks. When a bird builds a nest, it doesn't shame itself for creating boundaries. Yet somehow we've convinced ourselves that having needs, setting limits, and protecting our energy is selfish. Back in 1996, I witnessed something remarkable at a local community center. There was a volunteer, let's call her Grace, who had been giving her time every single day for years. She was always there, always saying yes, always taking on more. But she was exhausted, resentful, and surprisingly, other volunteers often treated her with subtlety. Then she got sick. Nothing serious, just a bad flu that kept her home for 2 weeks. Something extraordinary happened during her absence. The community center had to reorganize. People had to step up. Systems had to be created. When she returned, she set clear hours for her volunteer work. And here's the miracle. People respected her more, not less. Why? Because her absence showed her value. Her boundaries created clarity. This brings us to another vital understanding. Respect isn't demanded. It's taught. Every time you honor your own boundaries, you teach others how to honor them too. Every time you give from a place of conscious choice rather than compulsive obligation, you teach others the true value of your kindness. Take a moment now. Think about the relationships in your life where you feel most respected. I'll wait, got them in mind. Now, think about the relationships where you feel most taken for granted. What's the difference? In most cases, you'll find that the relationships where you're most respected are the ones where you've maintained healthy boundaries. Let me share a simple but powerful exercise I learned from a wise teacher in 2002. She called it the sacred no. Before saying yes to any request, take 3 deep breaths. In the first breath, check in with your body. Does this yes feel light or heavy? In the second breath, check in with your schedule. Do you truly have the time and energy? In the third breath, check in with your heart. Is this yes coming from love or from fear? This isn't about becoming less kind. It's about becoming more authentically kind. It's about transforming your kindness from a default response into a conscious choice. It's about giving from a place of abundance rather than scarce. Remember that coffee shop scenario we started with? Let's revisit it with this new understanding. When you see someone struggling with their bags, you can still help, but not because you're afraid of appearing unkind if you don't. You help because you've checked in with yourself and chosen to give from your abundance. When your coworker asks you to cover their shift, you can check in with your own needs first. Your no can be just as kind as your yes when it comes from a place of truth. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you're not just betraying yourself, you're depriving someone else of the opportunity to step up, to grow, to find their own strength. Your excessive giving might actually be stunning someone else's growth. There's a beautiful ancient oak tree in a park in Connecticut that taught me something profound in 2005. This magnificent tree had been standing for over 200 years, providing shade, shelter, and beauty to countless generations. But it was dying, not from old age, not from disease, but from something unexpected, excessive care. You see, well-meaning park visitors, wanting to help the tree grow, had been dumping water and fertilizer around it daily. Their kindness, their desire to nurture, was actually drowning the tree's roots, disrupting its natural cycles. Sometimes our overwhelming desire to give can suffocate the very things we're trying to help grow. True kindness to our third fundamental truth. True kindness empowers. It doesn't enable. When your giving creates dependency, it's not serving either party. When your kindness removes the natural consequences of others' actions, it's not helping them grow. It's keeping them stuck. Let me tell you about Maria, a mother I met in 2010. Her teenage son was struggling in school, not because he couldn't do the work, but because he wasn't doing it. Every night, Maria would stay up late, helping him complete his assignments, sometimes even doing them for him. Her kindness was coming from love, but it was teaching her son that he didn't need to be responsible for his own success. One day, she found the courage to step back. "I love you too much to rob you of the chance to discover your own strengths," she told him. The first few weeks were hard. His grades dropped. He was angry. But then something remarkable happened. He started doing his homework on his own, not perfectly, but independently. By the end of the semester, his grades were better than they'd ever been. Not because his mother had helped him, but because she had helped him help himself. Sometimes that we need to understand, and sometimes the kindest thing we can do is to step back and let others face the natural consequences of their choices. This isn't being mean. It's being wise. It's understanding that growth often requires struggle, that strength comes from overcoming challenges, not avoiding them. Think about how you learned to walk. Did your parents carry you everywhere because walking looked too hard? No. They let you fall again and again because they knew that those falls were essential to your development. Their kindness wasn't in preventing your falls. It was in being there to encourage you to get back up. In 1998, I witnessed a fascinating experiment at a community garden. The gardeners had two identical plots of sunflowers. One plot they tended normally, letting the flowers face the natural challenges of wind and weather. The other plot they protected, staking the stems so rigidly they couldn't sway, shielding them from every breeze. Can you guess which flowers grew stronger? The ones that were allowed to face challenges grew deeper roots, developed stronger stems, and ultimately grew taller than their protected counterparts. Your kindness might be like those well-meaning gardeners, trying to protect others from every difficulty. But in doing so, you might be preventing them from developing their own strength, their own resilience, their own capacity to handle life's challenges. Let's talk about something that might feel uncomfortable, the addiction to being needed. Yes, addiction, because for many of us, our kindness isn't just about helping others. So it's about feeling valuable, feeling worthy, feeling important. We've learned to derive our sense of worth from being needed, and that's a dangerous pattern. Consider this. When was the last time you felt guilty for not helping someone, even when you knew you were depleted? When was the last time you felt anxious about saying no, even when you knew you needed to? That's not kindness speaking. That's dependency. That's the addiction to being needed masquerading as virtue. In 2007, I met a counselor who shared a powerful insight. She said the most difficult clients to help are often the ones who help everyone else. Why? Because they've built their entire identity around being the helper, the giver, the one who never needs anything in return. Their kindness has become their prison. But there's the liberating truth. You are valuable beyond your giving. Your worth isn't measured by how much you do for others. Your importance doesn't diminish when you say no. Your right to respect isn't earned through constant sacrifice. It's inherent in your very being. Let me share a simple but powerful exercise that can help break the cycle of compulsive giving. I call it the mirror of worth. Every morning, look in the mirror and complete this sentence. I am worthy of respect today, even if I don't help anyone, even if I say no, even if I put my needs first, even if I disappoint someone, even if I rest. This isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming whole. It's about understanding that true kindness flows from abundance, not from need. It comes from a place of choice, not compulsion. It emerges from self-respect, not self. Think about the oxygen mask principle on airplanes. Why do they tell you to put your own mask on first? Because if you run out of oxygen while trying to help others, you can't help anyone. This isn't just true in airplanes, it's true in life. Your kindness needs oxygen. It needs maintenance. It needs boundaries. Let me tell you about Robert, a business owner I met in 2003. He had a policy of helping every struggling business in his network, offering free services, extended payment terms, endless consultations. His intention was beautiful, but his business was suffering. More importantly, the businesses he was trying to help weren't getting stronger. They were becoming dependent on his support. Then he had an epiphany. He realized that by not charging what his services were worth, by not requiring commitment from those he helped, he was actually undermining their ability to value and implement his advice. He started setting clear boundaries, charging fair prices, and requiring real commitment from those he helped. The result? Both his business and his clients began to thrive. There's a fascinating phenomenon that happens in coral reefs. When the water gets too warm, corals will expel their colorful algae, their source of food and vibrancy. It looks like suicide, but it's actually survival. The coral knows something profound. Sometimes letting go is the key to survival. Sometimes what looks like sacrifice is actually self-preservation. Let me share something that happened in a small town in Oregon back in 2009. There was a local baker who made the most incredible bread. Every evening, she would give away the unsold loaves to anyone who asked. A beautiful gesture, right? But over time, people stopped buying the bread. They would wait until closing time, knowing they could get it for free. Her kindness was literally eating away at her livelihood. Kindness without wisdom becomes its own undoing. When your giving undermines your stability, it's not sustainable. When your generosity threatens your foundation, it's not serving anyone. Have you ever noticed how people treat borrowed items versus things they've invested in? When something is given too freely, too easily, it often loses its perceived value. This isn't about human greed. It's about human nature. We tend to value what costs us something. Back in 1994, I witnessed a remarkable experiment in a community center. They had been offering free classes to anyone who wanted to attend. Attendance was sporadic. Commitment was low. Then they introduced a minimal fee, just $5 per class. Something extraordinary happened. Not only did attendance become more consistent, but participation improved. People started showing up on time, doing the homework, engaging more deeply. The fee wasn't about money. It was about investment. It was about creating a small but significant commitment that transformed how people valued the experience. This is a principle that applies to all forms of giving, including your kindness. Let me tell you about Sarah, a talented artist I met in 2001. She had a habit of offering free portraits to anyone who asked. Her intention was beautiful. She wanted to share her gift. But she noticed something troubling. Many of the free portraits ended up in closets or garages. Meanwhile, the few commissioned pieces she did were prominently displayed, carefully preserved. The difference wasn't in the quality of her work. It was in how people valued it. When they invested in her art, they invested in appreciating it. When it came too easily, they took it for granted. Your kindness is like Sarah's art. Its value isn't just in what you give, but in how it's received. Now, I can see some of you shaking your heads. You're thinking, but shouldn't kindness be unconditional? Shouldn't we give without expecting anything in return? Let's explore that belief because it's at the root of why so many kind people find themselves depleted and disrespected. Consider the sun. It gives unconditionally, yes, but not indiscriminately. It doesn't shine 24 hours a day. It doesn't apologize for setting. It doesn't strain to reach those who are turned away from it. It simply shines steady and true and allows others to choose whether and how to receive its light. In 2006, I met a counselor who shared a profound insight about boundaries. She said, boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges. They don't prevent connection. They create the conditions for healthy connection. This truth transformed how I understood the relationship between kindness and respect. Think about a garden. What makes it beautiful isn't just the flowers. It's the spaces between them. What makes it thrive isn't just the water. It's the drainage. What makes it grow isn't just the sun. It's the rhythm of day and night. Your kindness needs these same elements, space, flow, and rhythm. Let me share a powerful exercise I learned from a wise teacher. She called it the sacred pause. Before responding to any request for help, take a moment to ask yourself 3 questions. Is my giving coming from love or fear? Will my help empower, enable? Am I honoring both myself and the other person in this exchange? This isn't about becoming calculating or cold. It's about becoming conscious. It's about transforming your kindness from a reactive habit into a conscious choice. It's about understanding that true generosity includes being generous with yourself. Remember that baker from Oregon? She found a beautiful solution. Instead of giving away bread at closing time, she started to pay what you can hour in the middle of the day. People who truly couldn't afford full price could still get bread, but they had to make some investment, even if it was small. The result, her business stabilized and people valued her bread more, regardless of what they paid. This brings us to another crucial understanding. Respect isn't just about how others treat you. It's about how you treat yourself. When you consistently override your own needs in the name of kindness, you're teaching others that your needs... When you repeatedly ignore your own boundaries to help others, you're showing them that your boundaries aren't real. Think about the relationships in your life where you feel most depleted. Now think about the ones where you feel energized. What's the difference? Often, it's not about how much you give, it's about whether your giving flows from abundance or scarcity, from choice or compulsion. Let me tell you about Michael, a teacher I met in 2012. He was known for staying late every day, taking on extra classes, always saying yes to covering for others. His students loved him, but they also took advantage of him. Late assignments were the norm. Disruptive behavior was common. His kindness had become a permission slip for disrespect. Then he got laryngitis and couldn't speak above a whisper for a week. Something remarkable happened. His students, forced to listen more carefully, became more attentive. When he couldn't immediately help, they learned to help each other. His temporary limitation actually helped his students become more responsible, more respectful. Sometimes our unlimited availability limits others' growth. Sometimes our constant helping prevents others from developing their own strengths. Sometimes our fear of being seen as unkind actually prevents us from being truly kind to ourselves and to others. As we draw our journey together to a close, I want to share something profound that happened in a garden in Massachusetts in 1991. There was a rose bush that had grown wild and untended for years. Its branches were everywhere, its blooms small and scattered. Then a skilled gardener came along. She started pruning not just the dead wood, but even some healthy branches. People watching were concerned. "You're cutting away so much," they said. "Won't it hurt the plant?" Sometimes reducing what you give your energy allows what remains to flourish more beautifully. By the next spring, that rosebush produced the most magnificent blooms, not because it was giving more, but because it was giving with focus and intention. Your kindness is like that rosebush. When it grows wild and unchecked, it might produce many small blooms, but none of them reach their full potential. When it's pruned with wisdom and self-respect, it creates something truly magnificent. Let's bring together everything we've explored today into practical wisdom you can apply in your daily life. Think of these as your tools for transforming kindness from a source of depletion into a source of strength. First, understand that boundaries aren't the opposite of kindness. They're the foundation of sustainable kindness. Just as a river needs banks to flow powerfully, your kindness needs boundaries to flow effectively. Start by identifying your non-negotiables. Those basic needs and limits that, when violated, leave you feeling depleted and resentful. Let me tell you about David, a small business owner I met in 2004. He had a habit of answering client calls at all hours, believing that's what exceptional service meant. His health was suffering, his family life was strained, and ironically, his clients were becoming increasingly demanding. Then he did something courageous. He set business hours and stuck to them. Yes, some clients complained initially, but something remarkable happened. Not only did his quality of life improve, but his clients began treating his time with more respect. The second tool is what I call the conscious yes. Before saying yes to any request, pause and ask yourself, if I had to do this thing every day for a year, would I still say yes? This simple question helps distinguish between sustainable kindness and unsustainable people-pleasing. When you say yes to something, you're always saying no to something else. When you say yes to staying late at work again, you might be saying no to your health. When you say yes to helping with another project, you might be saying no to your own dreams. Your yes should be as conscious as your no. The third tool is what I call respectful giving. This means giving in a way that honors both the giver and the receiver. Think about teaching a child to ride a bike. You don't constantly hold the bike upright. You provide support while gradually letting go, allowing them to develop their own balance. In 2000, I witnessed a beautiful example of this in a literacy program. Instead of just giving students the answers, tutors would say, "I believe you can figure this out. I'm here to support you, but I won't do it for you." The students who worked with these tutors not only learned more effectively, but showed more respect for the learning process. The fourth tool is the energy audit. At the end of each day, notice which interactions left you feeling energized and which left you depleted. This isn't about judging others. It's about understanding your own patterns. Where are you giving from abundance and where are you giving from depletion? Let me share something powerful that happened in a hospital in Chicago back in 1997. A nurse who had been known for working endless extra shifts, always covering for others, reached a breaking point. Instead of quitting, she did something brave. She started tracking her energy levels throughout her shifts. She noticed that when she took regular breaks, not only did she have more to give, but her patients actually received better care. The fifth tool is what I call loving limits. This means communicating your boundaries with kindness but firmness. Instead of saying, I can't help you, try I care about you and I need to take care of myself too. Instead of that's not my problem, say I trust in your ability to handle this. Remember that baker we talked about earlier. When she changed her policy about giving away bread, she didn't just put up a no free bread sign. She explained to her community that to continue serving them with quality bread, she needed to maintain a sustainable business. She offered alternatives like the pay what you can hour. Her honesty and clarity actually deepened her community's respect for her work. As we close our time together, I want you to understand something crucial. The path we've explored today isn't about becoming less kind. It's about becoming more authentically kind. It's about transforming your kindness from a habit that depletes you into a choice that fulfills you. Think about the most respected forms of kindness you've encountered in your life. Maybe it was a teacher who believed in you enough to let you struggle with a problem. Maybe it was a parent who loved you enough to let you face the consequences of your... Maybe it was a friend who respected you enough to tell you the truth. Even that's the kind of kindness. We're cultivating kindness with backbone, kindness with backbone, kindness with respect. Not just for others, but for ourselves too. Remember the oak tree we started with? The one that was dying from too much care? The park authorities finally put up a sign explaining why the tree needed less intervention. They educated people about how the tree's natural processes worked. And slowly, people learned to show their love for the tree by respecting its needs rather than overwhelming it with misguided help. You're like that oak tree. Your kindness is a natural resource that needs to be protected, not exploited. Your generosity is a gift that deserves to be honored, not taken for granted. Your heart is a wellspring that needs to be replenished, not endlessly drained. As you leave here today, I want you to remember this. True kindness isn't measured by how much you give, but by how much both you and the receiver grow from the exchange. When your kindness uplifts both you and others, when it comes from strength rather than fear, when it flows from abundance rather than scarcity, that's when it becomes a force that transforms lives, including your own. The next time someone mistakes your boundaries for unkindness, you're not being less kind, you're being more wise, you're not being selfish, you're being sustainable. You're not denying your nature, you're elevating it. Your kindness is a gift to this world. Honor it, protect it, give it the respect it deserves, and watch how others begin to do the same.